Radio X studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to Behind the Balance Sheet. I am your host, Chad Dean, and I am a local recruiter here in town and the owner of Integrated Management Resources, which is the host of Behind the Balance Sheet. And I'm super excited today. This is our second episode ever. So I think I don't have the hang of it, but I think I'm getting a little bit better. And I'm excited also to have Dan Johnson here, who is a local CFO and recently relocated to Phoenix, which I find is very interesting, and we'll delve into that. The idea for this podcast came because as a recruiter, what I buy into is helping people in their careers. I help them get a new career, move, within their career, get more money, get out from a bad boss, different acquisition, they lose their job. And so I'm constantly helping people for 27 years now, and I love it. And so the idea came about where there's no podcast where anybody's talking about the individuals and how they achieved what they achieved and what they would have done differently, and especially within the finance community and specifically within Phoenix. So I'm very much about niche. So we're going after financial leaders in Phoenix, and I'm super excited to have you on here today, Dan.
Well, thank you very much, Chad. It's a pleasure to be on with you, and I'm really excited as well to join you today and talk about my story.
Fabulous. Well, let's start there. So tell me a little bit about yourself and professionally and personally.
Yeah. So Dan Johnson, I'm a chief financial officer at a company based out of Scottsdale here. It's a travel technology and business services company called One Company, or Open Network Exchange. One is our acronym that we go by. And I've been there for about a year now. It's a late stage company that launched in 2020. And we've just been, it's been a wild ride. We've been growing. It's a high growth organization, and we got a lot going on. It's a very exciting environment and culture to be a part of. So it's been a nice change and transition from what I was doing previously. So
great.
It's been great.
And you grew up where?
I grew up in Wisconsin. Went to school at the University of Colorado in Boulder. I did my bachelor's in accounting and my master's in accounting. I pursued the bachelor master CPA track. So it's a year to get your master's degree. Many of the programs in business schools have this program to launch future CPAs into the market. So I pursued that program. And then just kind of continued on after that. I got my first role at Deloitte & Touche as an auditor, and was an audit for a few years before looking for more of an adventure. So
gotcha. And let's not forget about the family.
Oh yes, yeah. So I have two boys, a 6-year-old who turns 6 today, and
happy birthday.
Thanks. Yeah, he's very excited about being 6, and a 3.5-year-old, and then we have one on the way that's due in about 3 weeks. So another boy. So we'll have 3 boys, 3 brothers, and we just call us the chaos group at our house. So we have the boys are just really, they're like any young boys. They're feral, they're adventurous, they're always wanting to have fun and seek adrenaline. We have 2 golden retrievers as well at home to add to the mix, and so and then my beautiful wife, she manages it all, so which is absolutely an incredible feat.
Fabulous. You're blessed. I predict a lot of damage to your house in the future. Good thing you just moved into a new home, though, right?
Yeah, so. Yeah, a new home to really have the kids just run wild in.
Oh, that's great. So let's walk all the way back into your childhood, or whatever it was that you decided that you wanted to go into the accounting and finance field.
Sure. It probably started in high school, taking math classes. I'm just, my natural disposition is one that's more logical, more kind of left brain. Really enjoyed math. I also enjoyed sciences and the more esoteric concepts as well. But that was just something that just kind of fell in. My mom was a CPA. My father was a pilot. And it just seemed like it was a good path. I knew I wanted to go to college and have a baseline of something to pursue. When you're at that, in your, in high school, college, you really don't know what you want to do. You're kind of figuring it out, and you want to find a place. Hey, do I want to do engineering? For me, it was like engineering kind of fits that bill, or business. And I just happened to just choose the business route. Get into the business school at CU Boulder, and then just figure out my path after that point into the finance and accounting space.
So when you signed up for UC Boulder, you went directly into the accounting track?
Yes, I did. I went directly into the business school, and then I chose accounting as a major. And
then and there, or did you wait the 2 years? Or
right then and there? My parents were probably a little bit influenced because my mom was a CPA at the time. So I was deciding between do I do finance or accounting? Well, I'll just do accounting, and then they have this 5-year track, which is great. You can get your master's in 5 years. So it just seemed like a great track to do, and then do finance as a minor. Or
Gotcha.
Take the studies to do a minor in that. So
my dad was a pilot as well.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
that's right.
Air Force retired colonel.
Yep.
Why not the pilot route?
That was actually one. That was actually, if I wasn't in finance, I definitely would have gone to be a pilot and follow my kind of my father's footsteps. To go to the Air Force and airlines and everything. So, it just kind of clicked to do the finance route. I really wanted to go to school, and I had 2 of my good friends that went to Boulder before that. We were really into skiing and snowboarding and all the outdoor stuff. So that was really our big passion. And, things just kind of, followed that track versus, going to the Air Force, military pilot track. Which actually, there are times where I'm like, that would have been, you see the jets flying.
Oh,
that
super
would be
cool.
Fun. Yeah.
My excuse is right here. I did not know I had bad eyes until I went into the medical, and they said, "Oh, you have bad eyes. You'll never be a pilot." And
no way.
Then I didn't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
But eventually found a great career. Right. So, so you go there, and walk me through your expectations of what you thought accounting would be, and was that real, or did you tell me about that before you went to Deloitte?
Right.
When you're in school, what was your experience in accounting? And the reason I'm asking this is really because we have a lack of students going into the accounting discipline. There's a major problem with that right now. Like in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a huge drop in people going the accounting. They think they need to go to finance rather than accounting. You went accounting. Tell me about that experience, and is it a highly ranked program? And just tell me about the experience in the accounting track at not necessarily specific to UC Boulder, but just the accounting track itself.
Accounting track was great. I mean, it is once you get into the school, these MPA, they call them Masters in Professional Accounting programs at many schools. It's a very close-knit group. There's a lot of camaraderie. You have these business fraternities that are specific for accounting. One's called Beta Alpha Psi. And so you have this, going into school, it's great to start building a network right away. And so that accounting, program is a very, close-knit group of professionals that, want to go in various directions. And one thing that was told early on to me, just by, colleagues, friends, parents, accounting is the language of business. If you can understand accounting, from the fundamentals, I mean, you understand how a business operates, you understand, financial reporting, FP&A, KPIs, how businesses perform, and then you get into the kind of the more forecasting and business intelligence tools. So from that perspective, you learn very quickly, this accounting it really is. This is how business operate. This is how investors look at financial statements. This is how they break down financial statements to build their investment thesis. So it really touches all aspects of the business, finance, capital markets, and investor, stakeholders within the industry. So, very early on when I started taking my first classes, that I started coming to that realization. I'm like, wow, this is great. And then, as you go through the business school, it's great to also get that kind of more finance fundamental background as well. So I'd always recommend to, pursue as many finance classes as you can in school, alongside, accounting, whether it's a double major or accounting as your main major, and then, have those finance fundamentals. But one thing that, one of the senior managing directors when I went into investment banking, they always like to recruit out of what he found is he always liked to recruit out of accounting programs versus pure finance programs. He just had he liked that that understanding and that mindset of the professionals and the young generation that they're recruiting. They always turn out to be very successful within the program and go on to do great things. Having that baseline of because it's really hard to teach accounting. Accounting is not, it's not something that you can just, kind of logically just jump into. It's a very challenging, concept to pick up, the debits and the credits and how things move. Maybe it's not so, logical at times on how they do things. So he found that, the accounting path was where we like to recruit out of for Houlihan Lokey, which is an investment bank. So we'd go to the MPA programs and also the finance programs too, but really kind of recruit out of that. So
was there anything where you went, uh-oh, what did I get myself into?
Yeah, there's always times, right? It's like, oh man, do I really like this?
So when did Deloitte come into the picture, or public accounting?
Yeah.
Did you know what you wanted to do? Was that kind of the track that everybody went to? Talk to me.
Yeah,
about that.
no, so I always wanted to, when I looked at my, early on, I'm a planner, so I was really kind of planning, what do I want my professional career to look like. I always, saw that CFO track as being, one that I'd want to pursue, and really that I thought that'd be a great fit with my personality and my skill set. So I always really, looked how do I get there, and when at Boulder, and this is I graduated in 2007 with my master's in Denver. There, and even back then, the primary path is Big Four. So the Big Four firms have a great recruiting program right out of these MPA programs. So they come to the campuses, they host events. So you got all the Big Four to choose from. So you're constantly recruiting with the Big Four. For probably your senior year, you start attending events with them, and you start looking for a busy season internship is like the first one of the first steps you do. So in your senior year, you'll do a busy season internship, and in the programs, the accounting programs, have it built in where it's flexible, where you do that busy season internship while you're still taking classes, and you get credits for that. So that was a great, actually, and as a college student, it's a great way to get great experience, make very good money in that, that 3-month period during busy season, and help out the accounting firms. And then also is network building. So it's building network. And then you knew when, after you went through, so as your senior year, and then typically they'd give you a full-time job offer if everything kind of clicked. And then you'd be going into your master's year with a full-time job offer with one of the Big Four. It was a great kind of launch pad for your career.
It's really important what you just said, and I'm going to say for the audience that the internships are so important, and getting that experience and then having that on your resume, because people want to know, oh, this person's worked in an office environment. They've tasted what we're going to be doing. They like the taste of it. They want more of it, as opposed to somebody coming in raw and you're like, are they even going to like this?
Right. And you taste it during busy season, which is the busiest time. I mean, everybody's working really late hours. The interns normally go home, in the evening around dinner time, but some of the full-time staff have to stay and work, but that's just part of the lifestyle, when you're young and you're kind of launching your career and really, building up your professional life. So,
So tell me about that. What was the first year like in public accounting?
I mean, it was great. I mean, it was, you have, all other, folks your age and your generation, you're learning as much you can. You don't really know what you're doing, but you're just trying to, pick up tasks here and there, and really diving into what it's like from, book accounting to what it's like in real life accounting. And you're interacting with clients. I mean, you're on the client site. You're not just, making copies and doing and getting coffee for people. I mean, they give you, hey, these are the cash work papers. These are how you test accounts receivable, and they just have you kind of run with it. So it's great on the job learning in a professional environment, interacting with clients, really building up those soft skills that you really need throughout the rest of your professional life.
You must have built up some serious muscles going through that for five and a half years.
So I stayed in accounting for 2.5 years. So
Okay.
yeah. And then I looked, when I so I got promoted to senior. It's kind of the typical path from associate to senior. Then you're really kind of managing the engagement team and planning out the audit engagements. And early on, I had I met my wife, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. and had two great mentors who were my older brother-in-laws. So, and they kind of, I talked to them about my career path, hey, how do I get, to, kind of more of a CFO type role. And so talking with them, they had suggestions and referrals. And so, when I knew I didn't want to be, kind of go throughout the process. Auditing wasn't my long-term goal. I mean, it's a great career path, and a partnership at a Big Four is absolutely, phenomenal feat, and it's absolutely a great path to take. But in my case, I really wanted to go that CFO route. So it's like, how do I get there, as fast as I can, and take that path. And then also at the time too, when I was auditing, I'd see, well, this company, went through an IPO, or we did a debt raise, or, and you see what the investment bankers are doing, you see what the attorneys are doing, and you're like, man, I kind of want to, be on that side and see what that's like. So that led me down the path. And with talking with my brother-in-laws who are both in their careers, both CFAs, CPAs, worked in M&A, worked in investment banking. So they really helped guide me, and they said, yeah, maybe you should look at going into banking. You'll get to see the transactional environment. You'll get to see M&A transactions, how those are structured, how those deals are papered, debt placements, how you build financial models for that. So, and how you value companies, and how investors look at it. So that really led me to looking and applying for different investment banking or advisory type positions. So, the one thing when I was coming out with my MPA, there's really, back in 2007, there's really two main tracks: is audit, tax. You didn't have all these advisory services. You didn't have like the financial due diligence services, the restructuring advisors. They weren't as prevalent, and especially in the market of Denver, it wasn't as prevalent as maybe a larger market such as a New York or California or Texas. So I was in that career path, but now accounting students really have a lot of those choices coming right out of school and into one of these advisory programs. Now you have the big consulting firms, such as Alvarez Marsal and Alex Partners, and they'll recruit right out of MPA programs, and look for to add staff to their restructuring practices, to their management consulting practice, to all these different practices that are now fairly prevalent. Back then we were just getting off Enron and WorldCom, so the Big Four hadn't really staffed up their consulting businesses, because they got rid of them during that time because of the independence issues, to where they are now. Now they figured out how to add on those types of businesses. Then you had all these other consulting firms pop up and grow throughout time too. So
are you happy with the move that you did with investment banking?
Yeah. No, I'm really happy with it. So I went to Houlihan Lokey in their financial advisory services group, where we focus. The group I was kind of the subgroup I was in. We focus on board and special committee advisory services and valuation. So we'd be hired by boards, management teams, financial sponsors to value companies for potential transactions, whether it was M&A transactions or debt placement transactions or incentive compensation, or a whole other kind of variety of different services that you provide within that business line that I was in. And I was happy there. It was a great experience. It was very different than public accounting. Public accounting, you work long hours, but you go to investment bank and it's a whole different ball game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
just another level, huh?
Just another level. So I get in, and and so I was a little bit older than the other analysts that came in, because I'd already did 3 years in public accounting, and there's another colleague that he was very similar background to me, came out of auditing, and so his name was Mark, and so we were peers at the time, and at the investment bank, the first thing that they give you a computer and start assigning you work and everything, and the first thing that happened was the associate comes around. One of the associates, one of my bosses at the time, because I was an analyst, came around and saw I was using a computer mouse. He's like, nope, mouses aren't allowed here. Here's the hotkeys for Excel. Learn those, and I'm taking your mouse away. So that's how kind of different, kind of like a hazing type thing at the banks, but it was a little bit. It was an interesting kind of like wake up call. And then, but it's fun. You work long hours at the bank. I mean, you be working anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week on different deals. But you build up a very great network and camaraderie amongst the other analysts that are in the same position as you. So and it was just a culture. I mean, you'd work, you'd have fun in the bullpen and throw balls back and forth as you're kind of cranking through financial models and pitch decks and things like that. And then And you'd all go out to dinner together. So dinner was on the firm every night, and so you'd all go out to dinner together, come back and work a couple hours, and then maybe go home and do it all over again. So, but I mean, within that time, I mean, I call it doggy years. You get a lot of experience within a very short period of time, because you're seeing so many different transactions and deals, and you're working with these very seasoned, very seasoned financial professionals and attorneys in the space. So it's really great, phenomenal experience.
So just put your time in and get that experience.
Put your time in, get that experience.
Incredible education.
Exactly. You get, and that's the the on the job training. Both Big Four, great on the job training. Investment banking, same thing, great on the job training. And you get your time in, and then you either kind of go throughout and stay there, which is a great career path. I mean, very successful. And I got promoted all the way up to senior vice president. Or you look at another path is people start looking at going to private equity, going back to get their MBA, and then pursuing something after that point. So you see all these different paths and where your peers are landing.
So your next move came, and why'd you make that move?
Yeah, my next move came. I was had been doing it for a long time, about 7 years, and I was just, you're advising, you're on the advisory side, so you advise companies, and then you move to the next deal, and I really wanted to get on the side of, hey, I want to be doing that, because I still had my ambitions to be a CFO, and so I wanted that that operational experience, that accounting operational experience, finance operations, and felt like it was a good time to make that transition. I was approached by a senior colleague who was going to a restructuring firm to launch a very similar service at the restructuring firm, and then also alongside restructuring services. So, and restructuring valuations, a big component of a restructuring strategy. So having that kind of hybrid experience, restructuring and valuation was a great fit for this firm. And so I called him over with another colleague. He gave me an opportunity to come over and build that practice up at this firm called Conway McKenzie. And so we built that up, and it was great. I mean, you hop right into the restructuring world, which is a whole different kind of experience, but great experience as well. So
I also hear very long hours in restructuring,
yes.
right?
Yes, exactly.
Strong demands.
Very long hours, strong demands, stressful situations, but the experience that you gain through that is also incredible. So so I did that for a number of years. So I was at that firm with them. My wife and I, we wanted to move to Colorado, so I joined another restructuring firm called Ankara in Denver, and joined their energy restructuring practice. It was actually a small group at the time, and myself and a few colleagues and this our senior managing director, we really built that up from what it was at the time, just a few individuals, to a very large energy restructuring practice, and through that got worked on a variety of different engagements and saw a lot of different things, and solved a lot of problems. So it was great.
Fascinating. And then you went. Riveron is still public accounting, right?
So Riveron's
they have the restructuring.
Yeah, they have they bought Conway McKenzie. So I was at Ankara doing mostly debtor side restructuring. So that's company side restructuring, and in those situations you are called in by an investor, a lender, or management team to go into a company and develop it's a company that's under stress, whether it's an operational issues or capital structure issues, and you help them solve those issues. You help them, you and your team, you help them solve the capital structure. So, typically they have very tight liquidity. So you're looking at liquidity modeling, working capital management, and then for business forecasting, and really trying to fix the business in any way you can. So, and a lot of that is a combination of operational efficiencies, improvements, and then also capital structure. Looking at the capital structure, looking at the debt load, recapitalizing the capital structure, whether you're doing like a debt to equity swap or recapitalizing the debt, looking for liquidity in other places, because sometimes you get into these also like crisis. You get into sometimes get called into a situation where it's it's somewhat too late at the time, and the company's already in crisis. Like have a very low amount of cash on hand to pay their bills coming due, and those situations are very, very challenging because you are from day one you're dropped in, and you really have to figure out how to fix a situation within a very short period of time.
Huge experience, right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I am not good at math. That's why I was a biology major. But if I'm doing it right, you were basically in public accounting or restructuring for 16 years ish, and
Yep.
then you went into industry.
Yeah.
You finally made it into industry. Tell me, that is really, very interesting. Tell me about that experience, the transition, what you expected and all that. That's
Sure.
very interesting because
Yes.
people want to do that, right?
Yep.
that's kind of the goal. It
Yeah, it's
seems
kind of
like.
the
If you don't become partner, you go to industry.
right, and consulting's great. So when I was in restructuring, a lot of the some of the roles you'll assume is interim management. So if the management team has exited, or if the equity or financial sponsor wants a change of management, a lot of times we'll get appointed as interim chief restructuring officer, interim chief financial officer, or chief executive officer. So early on, after I joined Ankara, my senior managing director, he was serving as a CEO of an energy company in Oklahoma, and he got called on another deal to be the chief operating officer of another company. And so he said, "Hey, Dan, I need you to go to Oklahoma, and you're going to be my proxy as a CEO there. There is no CFO, so you're going to be the acting CFO as well." So, I about 6 months after I joined Ankara, I'm now in an officer level role at an energy company in Oklahoma. So I got that experience, on the job, kind of taking it, from a fire hose very, very quickly. And so so that really kind of prepped me. Okay, this is what we do. There's a great COO in there at the time. She was phenomenal. So her and I worked closely together on the company strategy. It had already been restructured. So we were just looking at special situations. How do we monetize? What direction do we want to take this company? And we were dealing with the board was a consortium of hedge funds from the East Coast, and so we're trying to figure out with them, what do you guys want to do with this company? And we got a cash flow positive, it's growing. You got to put in capital if we want to develop additional oil and gas fields, or pursue some other type of transaction. And we ended up pursuing a sale transaction, selling the company for a very good purchase price, and got them a high return on the par value of their debt and their equity. So that kind of prepped me for that. And then, fast forward a couple months later, I worked on a couple deals in between, and then went into this very crisis situation, another energy company, and the CFO had quit before, the CEO had quit. There was a CEO of the operating company, but the financial sponsor didn't have any management of the team. So very quickly, we got in there, like, the situation's a mess. We should have been called in earlier, but they're like, well, we need officers for we need a management team, a competent and kind of mature management team to run this thing. So they appointed me as the CEO of the company to take it through its restructuring strategy, and that was about a year process to restructure that company. So that was a very challenging engagement. It was met with a lot of, and then you have the industry aspect as well. So oil and gas is very volatile industry. So you have things going on all the time. You have pipelines blowing up, and things operational challenges in the field that you're dealing with, on top of the financial aspect of the business, dealing with the capital structure. We had to put it into bankruptcy because we had a lot of unsecured liabilities. We really need to work out through a court supervised process. So that kind of led to I did that, and then always wanted to look for a full-time CFO role throughout my restructuring career, and then finally had the opportunity at one company. Fast forward a couple years later, at one company, to take on a full-time CFO role for a high growth company that really is growing very quickly. Is building up their finance function, and on a local and global scale. So I had the opportunity to hop in, and it was a great transition. I had luckily I had great experience from restructuring and serving as an interim officer. So going to a full-time officer was a fairly smooth transition.
But you're not fighting fires anymore.
Yeah,
right?
we're
that adrenaline. Like, what is that? Is it different?
It's different because it's high growth. So it's like, business opportunities and partnerships. And so we still have fire drills, but it's more like growth fire drills. Hey, we got this big partnership. How do we roll this in? How do we account for it? And so you're pulling all the different teams together, the development team and the product teams and marketing. And so you have a little different, it's a little different perspective and a little bit different role. So it's definitely, very high energy. Everybody is, kind of all on the same page on growing the business, and they all are, executing on the vision and the strategy of the company. And restructuring, it's a little bit different because you are coming in as an outsider, and you have an existing management team there, so you're really trying to build consensus, and you're doing kind of a lot of politicking to get people on your side to execute a holistic restructuring strategy. That's a big challenge because you may have existing individuals there that may be aligned with certain group, political groups within the organization. They may not be on board with this restructuring strategy or where it's going. So it's a little bit, it's different, but it's a fun different. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Still pulling 80-hour weeks?
No, not quite. It's an ebb and flow, but it's nothing like the investment banking.
Right.
And even restructuring wasn't. I mean, that's restructuring ebbed and flowed too. So you had really busy times, and then you'd have kind of lulls when you get things. When you get things after you get them triaged, and then you come up to another event, and maybe you have another couple busy weeks. But it was a little bit lighter than the banking. It was kind of consistent weeks at a high hour. So
gotcha. Well, it's a little more conducive now with so many, such a large family, right?
Yeah,
you can spend more time.
Exactly. And that was one of the things is, after I had my second kid and I was traveling 90% of the time in restructuring. Now, post-COVID, that's all changed. I mean, they're not traveling. When I talk to my colleagues that are still in restructuring, they're not traveling as much as they used to. I mean, back then, pre-COVID, it was just that was just the culture. That was the culture of the senior leaders of the firms. It's like, when you're on a deal, you're out there with the client, Monday through Friday, and that's just how it was. Now with Teams and with Zoom, it's great. I mean, it's great for folks that are getting into that because you can balance it a little bit better. Maybe go on a week or two at a time a month, or stagger it with your team, so people aren't always there, traveling 90% of the time and becoming, concierge key on American and things like that, which, from a family perspective is just not conducive. It was a real challenge kind of balancing that. And so for me personally, to try and find that balance had always been a challenge, because I was, driven, by my career and doing that. But, I also want, I wanted to focus on my family, and that turned my attention to, hey, I want to find something that's a little more, not traveling as much and a little more consistent.
Out of curiosity, do you think that is a fundamental change in the restructuring, or is it just temporary? Right, Google is famously now calling people back to the office. Do you think restructuring will go back to that 90% travel, or do you think that just really made a fundamental change?
I think it's a bit of both. I do think it's somewhat of a fundamental change with the technology now, that people are so used to using Teams and Zoom that it really doesn't require you on site 90% of the time. So I think it is a fundamental change for consulting firms, at least for many of the ones I talk to and colleagues that are still in the industry. There still is a bit of travel, but maybe it's like 50% now or less,
which is huge.
Which is huge. Difference. It's a huge difference from 90 or 100%. So,
right.
Yeah.
From a lifestyle.
Yeah. Exactly. It really allows people to have a little bit more flexibility and have a personal life outside of work.
So you said something earlier, and you said you wanted to be a CFO. So thinking back to when you said, I want to be a CFO, what is different than what it actually is?
That's actually a good question. I think just the you think as a CFO, hey, I'll just be dealing with the number aspect of the business and the capital structure. but you're really involved in the strategy of the business too. And the CFO role is really evolving over time with data and with finance being more of a fundamental part of the strategy of an organization. It's really highly integrated in with the CFO function or the CEO function, sorry, with operations. And a lot of times you have operational components reporting up to the CFO. You have IT reporting up to the CFO at certain organizations, however they're organized. HR sometimes, very often reports up. So it's becoming now a very integrated strategy, the finance with operations, with marketing, and with business development of an organization. So I thought that was, somewhat different. And I think that has evolved over time to a certain extent. So that's probably, what I thought, and how it really changed from my initial perspective when I was a, junior auditor or junior analyst.
You also mentioned that you believed when you made that decision that you wanted to be a CFO, that you had the personality and the skill set. Is that accurate? Like, was that the right personality and skill set? And is it true, or is there something that you had to actually work on and grow?
Well, I hope so. So no, yeah. So like I said, I was always, I'm very data driven. And I feel like data communication is the key to success. So I'm a very data, like KPIs and forecasting. I always want to forecast the future. So, early on in banking and restructuring, you learn, when you're in accounting, you're very historically looking, historically focused on, what has happened in the past. But you got to think about what's gonna happen in the future, and how do you plan for that? How do you target for that? And how do you achieve those goals? And so forecasting becomes a big part of it. And how do you forecast? Your forecast is only as good as your assumptions. So it's really looking at what are the KPIs that drive the business. Are we using KPIs that or data that maybe is not reflective of business performance? And so how do we improve that FP&A function, that forecasting function? And so I think that's a key part of it. And so I learned that, kind of early on. That was the great thing about the banking and the restructuring experience, because you're always forward looking, and you're planning for every scenario too. So you're scenario forecasting. In banking, you learn how to scenario forecast, a base case, a mid case, a high case. Restructuring, you always really, you have to, in restructuring, you have to forecast down to the weekly cash flow, because you cannot run out of cash or the party's over, really. So that's like one of the first things you learn in restructuring. So you're very detailed. And so I was just very detail oriented and very driven by data. And so that's kind of how it fit my kind of personality and skill set. And then also planning for the future, being, I'm somewhat risk averse as well. I've learned to take more risk over time as I have gone through my career, but that planning aspect. And my wife even says in my personal life, I always want to plan things out and into the future. Everything needs to be kind of planned, and then every scenario needs to be modeled out and assigned a certain risk probability on what's certainly going to happen.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything, thinking back on your career, and you still have a long ways to go, you're very young, you're very blessed, is there a move that you made that you think you might not have made looking back on it now?
Right. It's hard to say. I think everything happens for a reason. All opportunities kind of presented to you, and you choose what you think are the right opportunities at the time to kind of guide your life. So there's not one thing I would say that I regret doing, except for maybe being a pilot. But no. If I had to, kind of do it all over again, one thing, because I did want to go to this path, to the CFO path, and maybe one thing I would have done a little bit different would be, after, doing maybe a year in as an auditor, because I knew I didn't want, auditing was not my career path for me personally. I probably would have made a move a little bit quicker, over to the investment banking route, or maybe to a restructuring route, or something just a little bit quicker. But I did like that. I did love that, accounting experience too. So, having that Big Four accounting experience was great, because you get your CPA, which is, if you look at most CFOs, CPA is typically a requirement, if not, something that's preferred. So having that, and then just having that basic understanding of internal controls, financial reporting, transparency in financial statements, especially if you're working for a public company, it gives you that great experience. But if I had to do it, I'd probably maybe jump a little bit quicker, get that experience at the Big Four, and then jump a little bit quicker and kind of accelerate that to over to the banking or the consulting route.
Mm-hmm. Is there one moment that you can think back to, or one of the situations that you speak very optimistically about every role and how it helped build you?
Yep.
But is there the one that you just say, this was it? This is the one that really made me who I am and made me successful?
Yeah, you're right. That's tough. I think it's a building block. It's a building block of all of them. And each role came with just such different experience and perspectives. And then just different people you meet, building that network up, which I think is also very important of a career is building that network very early on and keeping in touch with people, which I'm not the best at it. I definitely need to improve on that. But I think it's just a building block. I can't point to one kind of specific role. I really think everyone kind of added, a certain level of, experience that I, value to this day.
Network is huge.
Yeah, network is huge. It is absolutely.
Huge.
I can't reiterate that enough. Network is huge. Keeping up with your network, building that early on in your career, and just keeping in touch with folks. And that's the great thing about public accounting. The great thing about investment banking consulting. When you're working those long hours, at the time you may think, this is miserable. Gosh, why am I doing this? My friends are out. A lot of my friends were out hanging out on the weekends, going on trips, and I'm in the office working. Because something's due Monday or we have a closing on Monday. But you build that kind of internal network amongst your peer group, and then you can really and you guys really bond over it because you guys are all in the same situation and kind of dealing with all the same stresses and things. Like I said, you're going out to dinner, and then maybe you'll go out, take a Friday and get some libations and things like that. So and just keeping in touch with those folks, throughout time, seeing where their career paths are going. It's really interesting to see where everybody ends up, and then just frequently touching base with them and see what they're up to.
So I think of leadership in those types of organizations because it is so hardworking. I think it resembles the military, right? You just have to do what the person above you says. It's just part of the code of the company.
Yeah.
But tell me, do you feel that you were a good leader in the beginning? What did you learn? What did you have to improve on as a leader?
Yeah, so leading is a challenge because you have leadership course in college, but it doesn't really teach you leadership. So early on, one thing that I'm somewhat I'd say I'm got much better at this today. I was such a perfectionist back then, with my work, that when I was promoted up and now leading folks, it was really kind of taking your hands off everything, not doing everything yourself, figuring out what skill sets, what people are really good at that you're leading, like what are they good at, that maybe you're not so good at, to supplement those skills and not doing everything yourself, because you're never going to be able to scale yourself if you're constantly doing everything yourself and in the details. So it's really kind of taking that step back, learning, and then having them do it. And you're spending extra hours. I mean, you're spending extra time, and it is what it is. But it helps grow them, it helps mentor and coach the younger generation so they can learn, and then they make your life better, once they learn, and then your life gets a little bit better because you're not doing everything yourself anymore. So, and then they're learning the process as well. So I think taking that step was probably one of the, most challenging things to learn, and for me to kind of take a step back from, and rely on others to do it, and then coach them through it, and then take the time to review and have them go redo things, or hey, what about this? Did you consider this? Did you consider that? And in writing those notes for them in their models or in their presentations, because that's how I learn. And so I feel like that's want to pass that on. That's how they can learn. Hey, so that was.
So learning to become a leader, was it natural for you? Did you seek books, just mentors? How did you learn?
Mostly through mentors. Mostly through mentors, on the job experience, and then we had some great leadership programs at Houlihan and at my consulting firms that they put us through. So we did annual trainings, and for each level, they would train you on what are the important skill sets at that level. So when I was promoted to VP at Houlihan, they had a great training program, for each level. They hosted in New York for a couple of weeks, and the VP training was completely different. It wasn't focused on building financial models building, pitch decks, learning how to do a weighted average cost of capital or a DCF or multiple approach. Is focused on, your soft skills. It's focused on leadership. It's focused on your sales approach and how to sell business, because now you're in a different role. You're managing. You know how to do all that technical stuff at that point. I mean, you know it in and out. You know how to build a whack in your sleep. And now it's about, hey, let's learn how to lead and be a good leader, lead by example. And also, build up the other soft skills that are required as you continue through your career.
Is there a difference in leadership in the industry, not in a restructuring role where you're in an industry, without getting anybody any trouble, but
Yeah.
is there a difference in leadership where you're at now versus in the, let's just call it the investment banking or the auditor role?
I would say the difference, the difference is the it's probably the skill set and the common skill set of individuals that are in investment banking that you're leading or consulting. It's very similar. People have a very similar kind of work disposition. And you're working these small teams. So now you go to an organization, you're now working with a very large team, coming from different areas, different backgrounds and experiences. So you're having to learn, what makes that person tick, what drives them, what motivates them, or what motivates this person. And so you're trying to pick that up. And then where are they good at, and maybe where are other people, you need areas of development, or myself, and then you kind of supplement that. And then you're kind of pulling together other large areas of the organization. You're pulling together operations. How do you interact with them? How do you interact with sales and marketing? How do you interact with the development team, with the testing team? So it's and then all the way up to the senior leadership and the board level too. How do you interact with the board and present them the information that they need to make to properly make decisions. So that was probably one of the biggest changes from being in a consulting firm. You're solely focused on a very specific project or deal or engagement at one period of time, and you have your close-knit team that you're executing this with, that you're very familiar with how you guys operate and gel together. And then now you're at a large organization, putting together all these different pieces and working with them, so you have a nice, efficient, kind of well-oiled machine.
Yeah, you said something interesting, which is figuring out what makes people happy and makes people tick, versus at the Big Four, it's probably more like, you just do this because that's what we all do, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no,
you're exactly right. Yeah,
it's a different type of leadership.
That's our work culture.
Skill.
We work, we work hard,
right.
And then you work for, most people are driven kind of by, the value of the work and the, what they get out of it. Hey, I helped this client do this. I executed this transaction, or we got this company, from a distressed situation. Now it's profitable again. And then on top of that, those, your compensation structures also are a bit different. So, and then you get, you're trying to figure out what people take. Not everybody is driven by bonuses or by this. Some people are driven more by, work-life balance, or by a hybrid schedule, or or by leadership or growing their career. So you're trying to, really figure that out. And I think that's very important to learn from everybody that you're managing, and having that situational awareness, so you can be an effective leader, and you're not just dictating down to people. You're really, helping, rise them up too, because it's going to make you much more successful. It's going to make them successful, and it's going to make the organization successful.
Yeah, that was an aha moment for me in my leadership growth, was that not everybody wanted to be me.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought everybody wanted to be me, but I learned that they did want to be me.
Yeah.
And different, people tick to different things, and they're satisfied by different things. And once you come to that, and the servant leadership, it was a big moment for me.
It really is, and it's learning on a personal and professional level everybody that you're working with, so you can work effectively with them and figure out what style makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So what would you go back and you already talked about maybe not staying in audit as long, but maybe not necessarily just business wise, but what would you go back and tell your younger self?
That's a good question. I'd probably say it probably has to come back to work-life balance. Really, your career is very important. And it's important, with a lot of aspects of your life, but your career's not gonna be there forever, or this job's not gonna be there forever. So don't, kind of don't sweat the small stuff. You're gonna come into a lot of stresses throughout your career. Always focus on your family. Make sure your family's happy. Make sure you have that quality time with your family, because I think that's a very important part, is to balance that in your life, and not focus so much on your career that you forget to make a life, essentially. So
That's so hard to do, because
it
I
really
could put
is.
myself back there and I was like, I just got to work my tail
I
off
know.
to
get to this level,
Yeah.
or to get promoted. I have to do this, and this, and you get really caught up in the details. And then also, sometimes you get so stressed about something, like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen, or are we going to get through this? You're always going to get through it, right? I mean, everything's going to work out. Just plan ahead, plan for situations, and you'll get through it. And then you'll think back 5 years later, a year, 5 years later, and you won't even remember that. Why was I so stressed at that time, and disregarded my family for that? I mean, it just didn't, it doesn't, it's not something to kind of get worked up about, I think. And I learned that over time, to let things go, be a little more laissez-faire about stuff, and hey, we'll figure it out. It's a challenge, but don't get worked up about it. We'll get it figured out, and then also balance with the family life, which is always such a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Somebody told me years ago I severely damaged my leg, and I was told how long the process was to recover from it. And somebody said, when you think back on this, it's just going to be a flash. When you're in it,
Yeah.
you're like, this is horrible, and you're in it every second and every moment. And then sure enough, I am now 4 years removed from that, and it was just a blip, and I
Yeah.
made it through it. And you control what you can control and do the best you can.
Right.
But it's just be in the moment, and you'll make it through.
Yeah.
People are amazing. They can make it through a lot of different
You
things.
make it through a lot of adversity. and I think of that kind of famous, or kind of ancient Roman proverb, per aspera ad astra, which is like through adversity to the stars. So you're always gonna have adversity, and it goes back throughout time, throughout history. But it's always getting through that makes you a better person, professionally and personally.
Gotcha. And I think you've hit on this quite a bit, but let's just quickly summarize it. What advice would you give to someone starting out early on in their career that wants to achieve the CFO title? Let's just kind of summarize that.
Yeah, I'd say plan it out early in your career. If you're sitting in a college program, start thinking about it ahead of time, so you can make those steps in your career, because every step you make is very important, and you don't want to jump around too much. So kind of get focused on it, see what you want. How am I going to achieve that? And what are the necessary steps and goals I need to achieve along the way? So I think like proper planning, proper kind of career path. Hey, I want to do this, and this to get there. Or I'm interested in maybe going this route there. And I've seen a lot of people stay in audit and then go on to be CFOs. Many of my colleagues. So it's just taking that career path and what interests you to get there.
You're a planner. That's
yes,
for sure.
I am. I really am. And it makes my wife frustrated at times.
So I know you like to help people. It's very evident. And if somebody has additional questions, they want to get in touch with you, how do they go about that?
Yeah, sure. You can, I'm active on LinkedIn, so you can just look me on LinkedIn, send me a message if you want to, talk. I love helping people. I love guiding them in their career path. I always, told my wife, when I retire, I want to be a professor, because I want to go teach and help people out. So look me up on LinkedIn. Dan Johnson's CFA CPA, I think, is my address, and send me a message, and love to connect and meet, and talk about how I can help anybody.
Probably the easiest way, because a lot of the younger people they're not connected to a whole lot of people on LinkedIn. So if you Google Dan Johnson One Network, it'll come up, and then you can find the LinkedIn from there, because if you're not connected to enough people, it's kind of difficult to run a LinkedIn search. And I as well can be found through Google, Chad Dean, Integrated Management Resources. And I want to thank you really for your insights. You're such a wonderful person to talk to, very easy to talk to, and I encourage anybody to reach out to you to consider continue the conversation with you. And I want to thank you for being on the second episode of Behind the Balance Sheet and being such a wonderful guest.
Well, thank you so much, Chad. It was a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the invite to come on this show. This was very fun.
Fantastic. Thank you.